Welcome to the 11th episode of Speak Up by Smiley movement. This week we'll be talking about violence against women and girls, and we're here joined by a selection of wonderful guests. So thank you guys for coming down. Since you guys all approached violence against women and girls from a different angle, would you guys be able to let me know what angle you guys approach it from?
So for us, we run a small organisation called Women Street Watch Newcastle, and we have a really grassroots approach. So we go to like the basics. We felt like the police weren't doing enough for women, so our approach is very much like grassroots at the front, and we provide water, flip-flops, snacks, chocolate, phone chargers, and free taxis home for women and girls. So it's like a really like the most basic form of activism, like strip away everything else, strip away funding, strip away government grants, all of it, and just go right back to the basics of there is a drunk woman, how do we get her home safe? And that's it.
Yes, I find that we have provided an attractive part of this organisation for women who come to us, they want to come, as opposed to going to the police when they feel vulnerable or intoxicated. They're not attracted to going there. So yeah, they come to us and we've got pink fluffy blankets, you didn't mention
and little
that.
fairy lights.
And fairy lights.
Which goes a long way.
So yeah, it just works like that, doesn't it? It's very attractive for vulnerable women.
I guess like a safer alternative to what's already there, you know?
Yeah.
And more welcoming.
Yeah, welcoming, that's a good word.
And what about you?
Well, I need you guys to come to London when I want a night out. I want pink blankets. So I am the CEO of the Avengers, Vagina Avengers, Vulva Avengers. Yes, we do avenge bad people. We have a safe space, a headquarters in London, and we utilize that space for people from socially disadvantaged backgrounds. And what that means is you have gone through gender-based violence, your parents have gone through it, displaced people who came to the UK first or second generation. You have a story to tell, you need platforming so that people can hear you and make that systemic change. So that headquarters is, and we have pink sofas given to us by our lovely partners, Furnishing Futures, through Stylist magazine. We have great gold chairs, amazing big campaign desk where people come together, young youth ambassadors, community ambassadors, and they are part of a policy designing. And then we take it up to the Home Office, we go to Crown Prosecution Service, we were at the UN together, we'll march down on our stomping grounds and make the legal changes that we need to see. We also provide direct support hub programs, as well as, campaigning is great to bring systemic change, but we also still need that band-aid approach on the grassroots level, because women and girls are actually, suffering. They are living in dire situations and they're not being looked after properly. We don't have that, systemic support. Less than 5% of government funding is allocated towards, supporting women and girls. And when you think about it, it's quite sad that we have to exist as charities doing this, because it should be the police and the state providing what we are providing. And in the support hubs, you come in, it's a women-only space, no men allowed. And, we have our own rules. Sometimes men do come and follow women, but we say, no, we're checking your wife's breast for cancer. And they're like, oh, okay, some silly women having tea and talking about breast cancer. For all they know, behind the scenes, we are orchestrating her leaving with the children, getting her visa sorted, getting her a job. And it's all through referrals. We work with over 200 partners. So partnership with charity is really important. And I'm sure we'll be partnering after this.
Oh, I feel like we just got outstaged massively. What an amazing project.
I'm just buzzing for that. Thank you.
That's amazing.
Now you're a Avenger.
Yeah. What an amazing thing. Really cool.
So it seems like a lot of the way people find out about violence against women and girls is by big campaigns or awareness days, like Violence Against Women, the Elimination of Violence Against Women Day. So how do you guys take work off that social and public perception of violence against women and gender-based violence as a whole in the work that you guys do?
Good question. Because for us, I think that subject is there, and I think it's there on an undercurrent level, because for us it's not so much discussed. We do find that women, when you've taken drugs or alcohol, we're also an all-female space, we have a no men policy within the actual physical space of our Van Wilma. Yeah, we think it's really important. We think the Sisterhood of the Volunteers is better as well from doing that. And we have this bright pink van, I'll show you, it's parked outside. Wilma. Bright pink van called Wilma. And so what we find is when women and girls have had like a drink or they've taken drugs, they want to express their experiences. So for us, the way that this is like communicated is literally like on a one-to-one basis. So I guess you must do it on like a kind of a grander scale, but for us it's more like we don't do too much of the big campaigning with that. So I think the unfortunate answer is they tend to hear about it because it's happened to them, or a friend or a volunteer or but yeah, like in a smaller scale. So
I feel like the presence of what we do is massive, and that's why women are attracted. Even when they feel like they're intoxicated, there's still a lot of shame around, oh, well, I've had a drink, oh, well, I've dressed this way, or I said yes and I didn't mean no, and I didn't really, know my own body, and there's still a lot of shame. So by being a bright, visible, where everyone can see, for the men as well, which is a deterrent, on a night out, and it's just absolutely like jammed. The presence then, because people might be a little bit more lubricated, like with alcohol or whatever, then conversations can be had without the shame. Yeah.
And I think grassroots are also so important because, we started the Avengers 10 years ago as two angry women met each other. Give angry women a cause, they'll take over the world. And it was more angry women joining, and then we had artists joining, we had lawyers joining, and we became a big non-profit by mistake, I would say. If you met our co-founders, they never intended for this to be this big, but I think when every time they've done something, they were like, wow, I can't believe we're the first people to put up a billboard about female genital mutilation in the whole continent of Europe and the UK. And
it's crazy.
They were like, it's crazy, we clearly need to do more of these things. And the more they did, kind of really by mistake, it evolved into this big movement, being an Avenger. And our approach is very much survivor-led. So when we support the women, say we see 100 women going through the same issues, that becomes a systemic issue. It's not their fault, they're doing, because often, like you said, there's shame attached, and society is so good at shaming women and girls. It was your fault. What were you wearing? You shouldn't have walked down that alley. You shouldn't have done this and that. No, it's happening because there's a systemic, wider societal issue that needs to be addressed. It's the government's responsibility. It's every single member of public's responsibility when they see something. I mean, we have a great saying in Britain, see it, say it's sorted. Why are we not applying it to women and girls' rights? We need to see it, say it's sorted. We are seeing there's over 230 million women and girls across the globe living today alive with female genital mutilation. We are seeing domestic violence rates are over the roof. The employment rates of women are still down. There's a big authority gap. Why are we not sorting it, right? And I think that's what the Avengers does. When we see these issues, we then turn it into a campaign with survivors. Are you angry about it? Let's do something about it. It's not your shame. You're not going to sit in shame and be shamed by the people. You're going to go and, barge down that door, whether it's Parliament, whether it's a government office, wherever it is, or funders, and demand the change that we need so that the next generation of our world's children do not have to go through the same suffering we have done. So that's pretty much our approach, and we're still survivor-led. Funny enough, we onboarded 2 white men to our board as a diversity. That was a refreshing experience for them because they've never had such experience. And I was just telling today there's an election result, and can we talk about it? I'm pretty sure, we can. Come and arrest me. So today the election results, I mean, women's rights is suffering when we see someone like, Donald Trump talking about women's rights in a very demeaning way, winning the election. So, I told my board members, work up on your white man charm, because we're going to need it in our US office when we are, stomping and campaigning there. You're going to be on the front line helping us get there so that us women can use your allyship to get our message through. And that's a really sad thing that we have to...
really unfortunate truth.
Exactly. Why do we still need to strategize? Yeah.
It takes the attention. There's so many things happening then that women's rights against women, violence against women, the attention's been taken away. So we'll have to shout louder. And anger, when you're talking about anger, I know that you started it through being angry. And also there's a big stigma with anger, with the shame and the anger. And anger is a really powerful movement, and it's not to be, you're not to be frightened or scared or ashamed of feeling angry about things that have happened to you or could happen, or not being heard or seen, you know.
It's a valid feeling.
It's a very powerful energy for change. Anger, authenticity, and then add the heart, and you've got a powerful movement, you know.
You're so right. I want to hear why you were angry, actually.
We're going a little off piece to the question.
No,
is that okay?
It's completely on topic. Why were you angry?
So it was after. So we're going for kick status. So we actually do want funding after 4 years. But that said, I'm just going to be really honest with my answer. So we were founded after the murder of Sarah Everard and Sabina Nessa, and we were incredibly angry at the way the police responded. The ways that formal authorities responded in the UK included wave down a bus. When would a bus ever stop for you? Like, why did she wave down a bus? Who a bus is not going to stop for a woman at 2 a.m. put her hand out. That's just not going to happen. They'll roll their eyes at you or they'll beep the horn. That's it. One of the authorities for the police went onto national TV and said, well, you can just ask a police officer for a badge. He had a badge. He was a police officer. Like, there were, I can't remember exactly who it was, but there was someone in quite a high up place somewhere who suggested, well, maybe the good guys wear like an armband so we know they're good guys.
We know they're good.
And I just thought they are so separated from reality at this point. And I was sitting there and I was watching TV and I was like, I'm absolutely done with that. Like, I'm done with that. None of these are correct responses. The police could have responded by saying, we will have no lone men working together. There will never be a team of all men. We will always have one woman there. We will always have police officers working in twos. But the answers and the solutions they had just were so clearly made by men in the higher up place that just never even realised what they were saying. I think they were really well intended, but they just completely, like, one of them was, well, you can always phone 101 to check the identity of a police officer. Oh, because a murderer's going to sit and wait for me to make that phone call. Like,
it's so anti-inflammatory for women who are getting angry and scared, you know.
And it was trying like sedate us. And anyway, so that's what made me really angry. And I was like, no one can stop me being a pink copper. Like, literally no one can stop me. So we have 2 sets of teams. We have a covert team and an overt team. The overt team you see because we're in Wilma with a bright pink high-vis jacket. And the covert, the undercover team, pretend to be drunk girls in bars with a lemonade, and they watch for spikings, and they watch for sexual assault. We've interrupted, I think, 4 serious ends of sexual assault already, and ongoing. We report that information to the police, and then we're in a position where we have to work with the police. But it was the anger in it was like, I refuse to accept that this is what is the best that can be done, and we can do something else, and there's nothing that stops us. We don't ask for permission either. I just take that van into Big Market, drive it up onto the pavement in between the police and St John's ambulance, and I'm like, we're here.
And we'll watch
and
the police.
They don't argue with us. They just don't let
Don't we watch the police sit in the van, this beautiful van. We could do.
They've got a massive van called Safe
Haven. They sit there. They're not really bothered about being there, and there's nobody wanting to go near them because they feel they don't trust it. And then they end up coming to us because there's a vulnerable woman who's gotten too drunk and she's like crying or whatever, and they just don't want to go to them, do they?
Yeah, no, never. Like, we always end up, I know there's another question a bit later on we were going to discuss about, like, inclusivity, but for us, a lot of where my anger came from is, like, any service that currently exists caters specifically for people in a more privileged position. So what we see with Safe Haven, yes, sometimes you get a bloke in his 30s go and charge his phone with the police, but realistically, if you're underage and drinking, if you're black, if you're first generation, if you're a lesbian, if you're... I'm trying to think of all of the rest of what make up our volunteers and our friends, is like, you don't want to go to the police. You've got 2 options now. You've got Wilma, nice van, pink sparkly lights, or a copper that might just turn on you. And sorry, a lot of police slander, so I'm not going to be asking the police for funding anytime soon.
But tell them how you feel,
but that's where the anger comes from, and we now do work with police. We went against the idea of having any men on our board. We're all women, but I fully understand why that's the direction you've gone, because you're right. They can sort of Trojan horse our way in.
Yeah, for us it was all about access and how.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, you guys. You had 10,000 year of this. Can you help us also?
And you look after us now?
Fix the imbalance. Yeah, please.
Can you do your bit?
Yeah,
please?
and I think for us it was about, you know, if it's happening to someone, something like female genital mutilation, modern slavery, extreme forms of gender-based violence where your autonomy and freedom is taken away from you, I don't think the rest of the world should just sit and watch. And absolutely, particularly white men who are from privileged backgrounds need to be an ally and champion, actively speak on it. But I would say their role is more sort of providing platforms for women who've experienced this to talk about it rather than making it their own campaign. We've had really great examples. I mean, recently, you know, we are onboarding Sir Max Hill, who's the previous Director of Public Prosecutions, as our patron. And this is a man who had a personal interest against, you know, FGM, and he was quite outraged. Why do we not have any FGM cases prosecuted? We had this law since 1985, and he took it on board as a DPP, as you know, as well as many, you know, revolutionary violence against women and girls cases, and he secured the first 2 prosecutions in his time. And because of that, now we have a 3rd prosecution under the new DPP. So we need people like this who do have the interest and mobilize them, but do it with, because when we had an event, he came to listen to a few survivors, and he was even more moved, and he said, clearly there's more work to do. Because we informed him, do you know if you have, you know, survived female genital mutilation, you go to A&E, they can't do anything. But say you had a nose broken, or your half of your face is slashed off in an accident, you go to A&E. The doctors may not have any skills. They will fly down someone from US or France, even if no one exists to perform that, they will fix that face for you, because it's human rights, right? It's not the same for a woman's vulva, a woman's genitalia. So you can be bleeding and tearing, they will do nothing. We do not provide reconstructive surgery. And on the other hand, we have Equality Act saying there's universal healthcare in this, you know, country, and we should provide equal healthcare to everyone. So when you think about it, we are breaching our own Equality Act. It's, you know, who is it for? Because at the end of the day, who's affected by FGM? You know, disproportionately black and brown women. And that's why, you know, men like Max coming back to him, so important that we have him platforming us and providing us the spaces so that the women who have been through FGM can go and demand this change. And I think anyone listening to this, sometimes it's very overwhelming to listen to violence against women and girls. You know, people feel doomed. Oh my God, doomsday. There's nothing we can do. There's something that everyone can do. We can't do everything on our own, but if we all got together, I mean, you can mobilize this whole, you know, pink van. I mean, that's a great idea. This could be nationwide. Other people could do it as well. You know, they could come on board. Same as being of Avengers. It's as simple as like you could, you know, donate like £1 a month. Like as small as like, we are very efficient small charities. You know, our support system is like £20 a month. You support a woman from beginning to end journey. It is like, women are so good at money. Like everyone should give us money. That's one takeaway from this.
I also think it's amazing mentioning men, because of this topic, it'd be interesting to hear how men feel about it and how they could help as well. You know, by donating, by feeling like on behalf of men, you know, that they can do something as well, and eradicating shame in all ways.
I'd be interested in hearing how many actually call out their mates. That's the one for us that we see. Like,
interesting.
I have never, actually no, that's wrong. The one shout out to the guy the Saturday before last that did actually call his mates out. But in 4 years, I have never seen a group of mates go, what have you just said? Why have you done that? Because we get harassed constantly the whole time we're on our shift. So we're out from 10 in the evening till like 4 in the morning, and we are harassed constantly. And I have only ever once, and it was that guy the other night, and I came home and I was
Irish
like,
guy.
a man actually called out his mates.
He was like, I'm sorry.
In 4 years,
mate.
it's never happened. I've never had, you get like a little bit of jokey, like, oh, he's sorry, doesn't mean it, he's just had a drunk. He's just drunk, he doesn't mean it. But we did have this one guy who was like, that's really uncalled for. I'm not going out with you again. What is wrong with you? Like, that's really disgusting. That's really embarrassing. We're never going out. I'm helping you get home safe, but we're not hanging out again. And I've never seen that in 4 years. So what I'm super interested in is like, okay, what are you actually doing? Because it's all very well sending money. That is great. I will take as much money as you want to give me. But what are you actually doing on a grass level?
Allyship.
Yeah, like true allyship.
Yeah.
Because how many men really like to say, I'm a feminist. I'm a feminist. I'm a feminist. I actually know more than you because I'm a feminist. I send money to Avengers every month, and I send them £2. Oh, like my friend that was accused of assault. Oh no, she's just lying. She's just made that up. So like, how much are you actually putting it into your practice?
Yeah.
And Street Watch at one point we were going to branch out to that, and then we were like, nah, it's a man's job. Let a man do it. That needs to come from them. So yeah,
Lots of conversations to be had.
so many.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I was gonna ask like a lot about like the cultural and societal like norms towards like activism and allyship, and I like that you guys all said that like it's an everyone problem, because people kind of just see, oh, like female genital mutilation or domestic violence, let women sort that, when actually like everyone is involved in the problem. So if everyone like bands together, that they can actually create change. But like, how do you guys see like cultural attitudes and societal norms changing? Like, is it something that campaigning or like being present in your communities like you guys all are, or is it like more like top down approaches? Like, how do you guys see that changing?
For me, there's more spaces just around where I am that we're involved with, creating safe spaces for women, creating safe spaces in mixed groups as well. Not for Women's Street Watch, but just branching out into other places and organisations that are going on in the northeast and Newcastle area, where there's men's groups as well, and these honest conversations are being had now as well, so we can all take responsibility for it. So I feel like there's just more awareness is happening by being present and talking about it, definitely. Yeah.
Do you think things have got better since you were a teenager in terms of how men treat women?
Absolutely.
What kind of things do you notice? Like,
just actually women talking to other women about it as well, because
like rather than keeping it like.
So this in a sisterhood. From my generation, long time ago, when I was small, there's so many things that have happened to me that I thought, well, you just get on with it, and being left with like family members and kids, your parents going out at the pub, and just being left alone, but also find like it's not worth talking about, so you just get on with it, and there's nobody to listen to you anyway,
So you feel like millennials are like more
millennials
open?
and beyond. I think there's just more platform, there's more social media, there's more safety to have conversations, and also women are not fearing each other as much. So a lot of women have been, this is off topic, right? But I could go back to the 1500s where we all got burned for being healers and stuff. But women have had it in our programming and conditioning, I believe, and what I hear with the work I do, to be against each other, to be in fear of each other, to not talk to each other about problems. It's a weakness, You want equal rights, okay, we'll give you equal rights, but you have to be like this now. And so for me, what I've experienced is the softening of women with each other. And then I hold women's circles, right? And support circles like that. And when you think you've got this big thing going on, and then somebody will just say, yeah, me too, and that, like, #MeToo was a big movement, wasn't it? But in the grassroots, in the radical, on your street level, next door and beyond, there are more softening women with other women. That is huge, man. It's massive, isn't it?
And this is why female-only spaces are still relevant and important. Yes. When we launched our female-only support hubs, we got so much backlash from certain very traditional funders, or I don't know, key figures.
And we're worried about that.
Well, do you know, I don't care. Like, we have enough open-minded funders and nice people to actually support it. I guarantee you, people like my mom, they will never talk about their vaginas and their women's health in front of a man, ever. Yeah. It's just not a norm that she's going to accept. And I understand, because majority of the violence against women and girls is perpetrated or orchestrated by men. So why would I want to talk about it when the majority of the harm in my life came from men? So for men to understand this, first of all, you can't be in all places. Because, you know, men have been quite, you know, general men, not all men. We're not men haters, just saying.
Well,
But yeah, general men, you know, they've caused so much harm in the past that they need to understand these spaces need to exist and they need to fund and support these spaces. But I also believe in having, like you said, those conversations, calling it out.
yeah.
There's not that many men who will do it, you know. I'm married to an engineer and he's very logical, you know, married an engineer, and they're usually feminists. And do you know what? It shocks people when he calls things out and he says things like, that was not cool. Why'd you say that? And he will not even let it alone. Like, why'd you say that? It's not a nice thing to say. Why do you think women are lesser than you? I don't accept that. You should apologize. And he won't even let it go. But also it's for us to call out the abuse amongst the men as well. You know, I was cycling down the street, going back from work, late night shift, right? I'm so tired. Traffic light. 2 men, very drunk. One of them walked towards me. And then he's like, oh, look at my mate. Does he not look like? And then he just uses very derogatory, horrible term against his friend. Just say, right, miss, you know, is that not right? He looks like it, right? And I'm just like, that's so not cool. He's a good-looking guy, and you should not have said that. Leave him alone. And I think you should question why you're friends with this guy. And do you know what? That drunk guy, they were both drunk, but he was just like, thank you. No one ever stood up for me. That's not cool. Why? And I saw they started having a nice, you know, argument about it. And I was like, we need to do that as well.
Yeah.
Because where there's misogyny, there's also bullying, and we need to end that culture. Look at it like we're all human race, woman or man, right? We all have equal rights. But that starts with having these like grassroots conversations and then taking it to top up. Like you said, top down is also important, because we could do all the things we want in our communities, but our governments need to align with us, you know, the decision makers. We need to make sure that there's enough women. You know, for example, at the United Nations recently, I think there were only 12 female speakers from countries. That is so shocking, you know, over 100. There's no, you know, female voice. And then you go to like, you know, Commission of the Status of Women. Still, there's men talking about women's rights and what they should and shouldn't have.
Yes, really quite insane.
Like from what you said, like about like there also being like a top down and bottom up approach, how do you find that like legal systems are like effective in either achieving justice or even just helping support victims and survivors like get the support they need?
I mean, the legal systems are not there, first of all. let's face it. And you know, we have this 2030 UN goal ending gender-based. It's not going to happen. Let's face it. We're not ending gender-based violence by 2030. We're in 2024, coming to 2025. We don't live in a world where that's going to happen. However, having said that, if we weren't all sitting down in a doomsday approach, and everyone is doing these, you know, you have a community, look after your community, your neighbors, your surroundings, call it out when you see it at your school, at your university, at your job. How do you make sure, say if you're an engineer, for example, how do you put on more marketing dollars behind your recruitment so that you can get more women in place? And then in government, I would say, you know, a cabinet can look diverse, by the way. It can have a lot of women, but are the women being pressured with tokenism? They think there's just that one opportunity for that woman that they have to just go on with the men, or is the system in place that they can actually go ahead and make policies benefiting women and everyone else? Because when women rise, we all rise. It's a very simple thing. We're not saying men shouldn't rise. Great, let's rise together. And I don't think the legal systems are there. I mean, there's great laws. I would say in the UK at least, we're lucky to have some great laws, because when you go to Afghanistan, for example, you can't speak. You know, I'm born in rural Turkey, and we've had many rights missing, you know, technicalities. You've had on paper, but not really. You know, my mom was bought and sold for land and like sheep, and it's ridiculous when you think about it. It's my mom living in this generation and time. But the fact that there's no legal system to protect people against that is really shocking. We've, you know, raised the child marriage age from 16 to 18 in 2022 in England and Wales. You go figure. So I'm sure there's still stuff that we need to do as well-resourced countries, because we have quite big currency power. Why do we have pretend poverty? A lot of these well-resourced countries are like, oh, you know, so much has gone wrong. We don't have enough money. And there's people living in deep poverty in these countries as well. We need to lead the way and support. Because of colonialism, we need to address that power imbalance. And it's now. And no, it's not colonial to address the power imbalance, because the reason why you have that big stone building in the middle of London is exactly precisely because of slavery. So you need to acknowledge that, swallow the hard pill, and then go from there. And I think that's how a legal change is made, accepting the wrong and then not being offended. Like, for example, if I was to take over, say, Metropolitan Police, not that I'm planning, but I would probably give a whole speech and do a big marketing around how the organization messed up in the past, and start with that, and how do we address this and go above and beyond to fix that. And I see exactly the change making in legal world needs to be like that. What was messed up on a big scale, how do we go on about it now?
Yeah, say sorry. An apology. Women are so cool, man, because we're so forgiving. We're really powerful. We're so forgiving. And if men knew how powerful we were and how useful we were to them, and we all come from the mother, don't we? And we can go a long way with a sorry. Do you know what I mean? We can,
As long as it's a permanent one.
a sorry, and we will do this.
Yeah.
It's tough
know.
though, because I think one of the unfortunate truths about why things aren't changing is, I hear a lot this feminism is for everybody, and it will benefit all of us, but realistically, to dismantle a system of power, we are taking down the people in power. So it does massively disadvantage. If you think of 100 CEOs and every single one is a white man, you need 50 of them to lose their job for women who deserve it to step into those places, women who should have been there to start with. That's 50 blokes who now don't have their job. So I find it really tempting to fall into palatable feminism, where we say it benefits everyone, it's good for everyone, but the structures, like you're saying, like colonialism as well, return land. Yes, that means making people losing their property, but the only way you can balance out the field is when you've got one pillar this big, and one pillar this big is this one needs to come down before you can get the other one up. And I know that might sound too radical or too deep, but it's like it's an unfortunate part of trying to have of male allies, is actually this does not benefit you. This doesn't benefit you. If women being taken out of human trafficking doesn't benefit the men who are paying for her.
Well, they would actually have to use their brains and come up with a legitimate business.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. Completely. Or date. Become nice enough to date and not rely on a trafficked woman for intimacy. So actually, I feel quite strongly that it doesn't benefit men, and that's why it can be quite hard for us to get these steps forward.
Do you know what my husband says on this? I know I talk about him a lot, but I love the man. He says, because as an engineer, he's quite confused. He lives on the spectrum as well, because everything is about logic and what makes sense to him. And he goes I wake up every morning knowing there's a woman who chooses to be with me, and this woman has a high power job, right? You can Google her. And he always says, you put my surname on the map. And the reason why I dropped my, old surname was, my father was trafficker, right? So it's like, trafficker or this nice man. It was a feminist decision. I took up his name because we couldn't come up with a new name. I was like, okay, this sounds great. Semagonal, worked out. And he says, you know what? It's so stupid that men like Andrew Tate exist. It's so stupid that they are not seeing that this could be possible for them. Empowering your partner, being in a consensual relationship, knowing that that woman wakes up and chooses to be with you in heterosexual relations, right? And I can't believe actually so many men are missing out on that. It's better when your female partner is empowered and doing so well. And I reckon a lot of these CEOs empower men who don't want to give up on. They're not even good at their jobs. They're stressed all the time because it's not suitable. When you hire the right people, trust me, it does turn out, women and men get balanced up. For us, it was a funny story. This year at the Avengers, we are all minoritized core team right now, so all female minoritized. There was one funder who was considering to fund us, and he went, you're not diverse enough. And I was like, excuse me. And he went, well, you don't have any white people in your core team. I don't know how to say this. And I was like, well, we are led by and for, but also I promise we did try to hire a white person. We did. Like, I'm, we were like, will men apply for this graphic designer job? Because they're not going to be around women. They could probably do it so well. They didn't, there was more of an application from women. And the best people who turned out for the job were minoritized migrant women. So we haven't done it on purpose. But, in big company structures, when you actually hire for leadership roles especially, it does turn out, 50-50 male, female, and then LGBTQ as well. You just need to go ahead and give the job to whoever is probably, person. But also addressing the, the systemic changes there, because some jobs will ask for MBA for CEO roles. How many women do you know who can afford an MBA? In London, an average good MBA is £100,000.
Yeah.
Wow.
I don't have that. Never gonna have that. Because of the, the generational wealth gap as well. Because we were busy not having a bank account 50 years ago, and men needed to sign for your credit cards.
I know.
The anniversary of that was literally
The
like a week ago, wasn't
Wasn't
it?
that
Like,
long ago, was
yeah.
it? We were talking about that.
Yeah.
And a woman couldn't have a mortgage till it
And so
wasn't
of course,
the 80s,
of course,
was
it's
it?
always like
something like
it was
that.
like- I
Like,
think it's
Can you imagine that,
70s
Shay?
or
You're going to
80s.
buy a coffee, you do not have Monzo. Not happening.
2024
No,
problem.
exactly.
But I'd never even thought about that. But yeah, I'd never even
Yeah.
realised that actually, of course, we're not even going to have the generational wealth because who left us a
There's
house?
a gap, yes.
Who left us a
There's
house
huge
over the last
gap.
400
But also
years?
There's a huge gap of like the same status, like so that we've got a lot of work to do as women to have that voice, However it comes for every individual. Yeah.
I think that's really good words to end with. Thanks for watching, and you can find the rest of Speak Up on YouTube as well as like some clips on our Instagram.